Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, Lourdes. How are you?
Terrific. How are you?
I'm really good today. Thank you. Thank you. Had a good weekend. How about you?
Yes, it was a very good weekend. It's Tuesday morning, and I feel like that was so long ago already. Time sure flies. Time is going by very quickly these days. Yeah. Shall we get started?
Let's do it.
Yep. Well, you're tuning in to another episode of Coaching Conversations, where Maria and I break down psychology and mental well-being in a way that actually helps you in real life. Today, we're going to discuss taking your power back.
And I'm 𝐿𝐴𝐵, and we're talking about something that keeps so many of us emotionally stuck. Resentment. That lingering feeling that just won't go away no matter how much time passes. It just keeps coming back up.
Yeah. And before we started, Maria and I were discussing an incident of my own where this happened, where it was just like, sometimes you just can't shake loose of occurrences and the story you've built around it. But here's the thing. Resentment isn't just about what happened to you. It's about the story your mind is telling about what happened. That's what keeps it alive.
And that's what we're going to explore today. How to challenge and reframe the story so that you can finally let go of unnecessary suffering.
Yeah. So let's start here. When we experience hurt, whether it's betrayal, rejection, or just feeling wronged, it's not actually the event itself that keeps us suffering. It's our interpretation of the event.
Right. And that's such an important distinction, because if you think about it, two people can go through the same exact situation and walk away with completely different emotional experience. One might actually feel deeply wounded while the other just shrugs it off. So what's the difference? It's the meaning that they've each attached to what's happened.
Yeah, and I think that's worth repeating. It's the meaning they attach to what happened. I know that was definitely the case with me. I made it mean something that was not really beneficial. So let me give you an example. Let's say a friend forgets your birthday. One person might think, wow, they don't care about me at all. And another person might think, yeah, they're probably overwhelmed with life right now, right? That can happen. The event is the same, but the emotional impact is totally different based on how it's interpreted.
Right. So the first step, it's letting go of resentment, is just question the story that you're telling yourself, what we tell ourselves. Are we making assumptions? Are we personalizing the situation in a way that might not even be accurate?
Yeah. And, speaking of personalizing, this is one of the biggest reasons we hold on to resentment. We assume that what someone else did was a direct attack on us.
Yeah, we always think it's about us. We think they did this to me on purpose. It's about me. And most of the time people's their actions are driven by their own struggles, their blind spots or emotional limitations, not by some grand plan to hurt us. Really, most of the time, even when we do something, it's not because we're trying to hurt somebody, it's because we're focused on what's bothering us. And if we remember that it's them doing the same thing, they're focused on what's bothering them, they're not considering how they're affecting us.
Yeah, oftentimes these slights can be about them and what's going on for them and how they're handling their own life situations and interpretations and perspectives, right? So, let's say someone snaps at you. You could take it personally and think, oh, they don't respect me, or, that's a disrespectful person and they don't honor me. Or you could step back and consider maybe they just had a rough day. Maybe they're stressed or overwhelmed or dealing with something that I don't know about and has absolutely nothing to do with me.
Yeah, and if you find that you're being triggered the same way, that's something that you can really focus on so that you're not being triggered the same way. Because if you often feel disrespected, or you feel that somebody's made you feel less than, these are buttons that you control. This is something that you're going to need to look into and say, why do I always feel disrespected? Well, there's something in your past, another story that is being triggered. It's about another thing that happened that you haven't dealt with. So if you find that you get that feeling of disrespect, or you feel shamed, or any one of the triggers, you feel rage, insecure, anger, these are triggers that you have. And if you start focusing on them, you can get rid of those buttons. You don't have to live the rest of your life with these buttons. But
Yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt, Maria.
no, okay.
Those buttons, those triggers of yours, that those are signs that are leading you to your work. Like, this is where I need to focus. If this is coming up for me repeatedly, especially, then you need to do some work in that area and excavate, investigate what is there in order to get
Right.
past it.
Right. And this is how you empower yourself. Don't you stop allowing other people to push your buttons. This is about self-empowerment, so that if because the thing is, we're not excusing bad behavior. It's just that it just means that freeing yourself from unnecessary suffering. It means realizing that most of the time other people's actions say more about them than they do about you.
Absolutely. I was watching an interview with Jon Kabat-Zinn recently, and he was asked what his definition of mindfulness is, and he said something along the lines of, not taking everything so personally, because how people react, their behavior is usually about them, but we take it personally and we create story and meaning and make it about us. And that oftentimes leads to a lot of suffering for us,
Right.
right? So let's say you're holding on to a painful event.
Mhm.
One of the best ways to reframe it is to separate the facts from the story you're telling yourself.
Yeah, and that's such a great tool, because when emotions take over, we blur those lines. We might say, they betrayed me, they don't love me, I can never trust anyone again. But when we slow down and we ask ourselves, whoa, what exactly happened? What's the evidence for the story I'm telling myself?
Yes, this is cognitive restructuring in action. Instead of reacting from pure emotion, we ask ourselves, what are some alternative explanations? Or you can also ask, am I jumping to conclusions?
Right, and even if their behavior was wrong, we can ask, how much power am I giving this event over my emotional state?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love this analogy. Holding on to resentment is like holding on to a hot coal, like you're waiting to throw it at the person who hurt you. But the only one getting hurt or burned is you.
Right, that's so powerful, because let's be honest, how often does holding on to resentment actually help us. It doesn't. It drains our energy, it keeps us in the past, and prevents us from moving forward.
Yeah. So letting go isn't about saying what happened was okay. It's about deciding that you deserve peace more than you deserve to stay angry or resentful or in the past of what happened.
And that brings us to the big question. What belief are you willing to release today so that peace can take its place?
Yeah. Yeah, I almost feel like that's a good place to just pause for a minute. But here's a quick recap for everyone listening. If you're holding on to resentment, here are the 4 things you can do. Question the story. Ask, is my interpretation the only possible explanation?
And then step 2, remember, it's usually not about you. Other people's actions are often about their struggles, not you.
And step 3, separate facts from emotional storytelling. Identify what actually happened versus the meaning you've attached to it.
And again, let go of that popcorn. Remember, resentment doesn't punish them, it punishes us. It keeps us suffering. And, today, as your challenge, or this week, think of one thing you've been holding on to and reframe the story and see how it feels. I like to remind people that people are doing the best that they can based on the limiting beliefs that they are holding on to. We all hold on to a lot of stories that no longer serve us. And it's your job, not somebody else's job. It's your job to take those stories, reframe them to empower yourself. When you take responsibility for these stories, it's self empowerment. Do it with self compassion and self forgiveness.
Absolutely. And it really is about taking your power back and really freeing yourself from the shackles that these events or past occurrences have kind of tied you down to. So if this episode helped you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because real emotional freedom starts inside of us.
Okay.
And as always, if anyone listening needs some help, some guidance, some support, please reach out. We're here to help.
Thank you.